Welcome to Focus Washington. I'm Chuck Conconi. I have a great guest today who has written this book after America, Paul Starobin, Narratives for the Next Global Age. Paul, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I look at the cover of this book and I see sinking America kind of behind the horizon.
Could be, yeah.
Does this mean it's the end of America's rule or power across the world?
I like to say it's the end of an ascendancy. And so in other words, we've been climbing this long staircase and we've reached kind of the end of that. It doesn't mean they were necessarily about to disappear over a cliff, but it might be more of a plateau.
This is not like the Roman Empire where the fringes are closing in.
There's some of that, but we don't have to go the way of Rome. I mean, every empire collapses according to its own character and according to the age in which it belongs.
So what does it mean? I mean, this does sound grim to me. I've read through the book, and you keep talking about where the next power bases are.
Yeah. Well, it's not completely grim in the sense that I think if we Americans kind of get our minds, adjusted to, our place in the world, then there are probably lots of ways in which we can do well. So it's a matter of adjustment. But the basic premise of the book is that we've reached the end of a political, economic, and cultural kind of an ascendancy. In other words, sort of America as a way of life, America as a civilization. The military component I kind of put in a different category. I mean, we're clearly militarily, preeminent. I'm not sure what that gets us, but no one is remotely, close to us in terms of our military power.
Well, since World War II, we've dominated the world, and Americans have become accustomed to being a dominant power.
That's right.
What our role will be, I don't know, more of a power sharing with China or other emerging nations?
Well, it might be China, or it might just be that other countries, other societies are doing some things better than we're doing. I mean, Japan, for example, it's not going to be the dominant power in the world, but it certainly has a much better infrastructure than we have. Talk to anyone who lives in Japan, high-speed rail, this kind of a thing. So part of what it means is when America was the model for the world, we were basically looked to by others all around the planet for how we were doing things, our economy, our politics, our culture. Now, in this kind of more complicated global picture, we should also be looking around the world to borrow best practices, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's healthcare, it might be financial regulation. So we Americans have to give up a little bit on this idea that everyone wants to copy us, and we have to be more globally aware. We should be learning more languages. We should be having our kids learn more languages. It's that kind of, that would be the happy adjustment to this. There could be a dark adjustment, but there is a happy adjustment process.
But Americans are reluctant. I mean, they start talking about other health plans, where you mentioned that around the world, and since that's such a big major fight going on right now, they always go, we want no health plan like China. I'm not China, I mean France. Right. We don't want anything like Canada.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand how it's going to be sold to Americans. This seems pessimistic to me.
Yeah. Well, the way I would sell it is to have them read any statistics on things like infant mortality in America and life expectancy around the world, and they'll find that America is very far behind other countries. So you might not like the French healthcare system, so fine, we don't have to directly import it, but you have to at least acknowledge that some other countries are doing things better than we're doing them. I mean, the argument that we have the best healthcare system in the world cannot be sustained by the actual data on how healthy
it's like
people
45 million people not covered.
Well, it's that. It's 49th place in infant mortality. Its life expectancy is higher in virtually every other Western European country. I mean, statistics like that. If we have such a great healthcare system, then why aren't our people healthier?
Well, then what do you see as positive? I mean, when you bring your book back, and one of the things you said in here, which I thought was interesting, is you talked about California in itself being a major power into itself. There would be kind of power structures. Now, California has its own problems.
Yeah, a lot of problems. Well, that's the paradox of California. On the one hand, I think it's incredibly, tremendous ingenuity there. I mean, cultural vitality. I mean, I love California. I'm from New England, but I go to California and I think, wow, this is marvelous. I mean, on the other hand, the state government is completely screwed up, and they're financially broke. Maybe California could be broken up. I mean, why not have, 3 republics, for example, and let them kind of make their own global connections? I mean, I would be, talk about it. I was just out in California, and people are actually, they're sort of thinking about these more radical alternatives because they realize that, Sacramento is basically broke and distant from their own local needs.
We probably have time for maybe one more question. What do you project for the first half of this century for for the United States and the world?
I think we're in a kind of interregnum. I mean, we've reached this plateau, and so what we have to be looking for is what's next. So the what's next could be a number of things. It could be a kind of chaotic situation. It could be more of a multipolar world where we have the Brazils, the Indias, the Chinas, possibly a Russia coming on stage. We could have more global governance kind of initiatives. I mean, that's something that's coming out of Europe with this global economic crisis. They want to have a more of a global kind of financial security umbrella. And we could have cities, I would be looking at cities, global city-states.
You said that.
Yeah, well, more than half the world's population now lives in cities. And it doesn't just have to be London and New York and Hong Kong, but places like Dubai or Bangalore or Santiago in South America is an interesting place, Sao Paulo. I mean, we need to sort of get our minds around the idea that the world is a much bigger place. It's not as American-centric as it once was. It doesn't mean that we're going down the tubes, but it means that we're going to have to make some, mental adjustments, and we have to become a little less complacent about, our status in the world relative to others.
Oh, Paul, it sounds like it sounds like going back to the city-states of the Greeks. But anyway, it's an interesting idea. This is Paul Starobin's book, After America, Narratives for the Next Global Change. Paul, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Chuck Coney, and this has been Focus Washington.